All right, today we're diving into a pretty profound way of seeing the world. And what's cool is, it didn't come from some fancy university or ancient text. Nope, it came from a chance encounter in a Mayan village. It's a philosophy called Trispectivism, and honestly, it might just change how you see yourself.
So the story starts with the author of our source material, who's at a meditation retreat and stumbles upon this mysterious little white booklet. And the ideas inside, they weren't just interesting, they completely flipped their whole understanding of reality on its head.
So where did all this begin? Not in some dusty old library, but on the sandy paths of San Marcos. Fun fact, according to Mayan legend, this is the very village where humanity itself was born. Kind of fitting for the origin of a whole new way of looking at the world, right?
And this wasn't some formal study or lecture. This whole discovery was born from a deep, late-night conversation about, the meaning of life. A simple little pamphlet, passed from one person to another, held this incredibly powerful new framework.
Okay, so what was in this booklet that was so mind-blowing? It was an introduction to a worldview that tries to connect our own individual self with the huge, vast world all around us. It's a philosophy the author ended up calling Trispectivism.
At its core, the idea is pretty simple, but also really deep. Reality is one complete system, the all. But this all is made up of two parts that are always interacting. There's you, the individual all, and then there's everything else, the universal all. So you're both this unique, distinct self, but you're also completely and totally connected to the whole.
Let's try to make this a little more concrete. Think about the stock market. You've got a single stock, right? It has its own value, its own identity. That's the individual all. But it's also, without a doubt, a part of the entire market, the universal all, and its fate is totally tied to that bigger system. Or think of one single note in a giant symphony. It's distinct, but it's also part of the whole song. Trispectivism also gives us a few natural laws that act like lenses for seeing the world. To really get how this works, let's look at one of the most fundamental ones, the law of polarity.
So the law of polarity basically says that concepts only have meaning because their opposites exist. You can only really understand what warm is because you know what cold feels like. Or you only get light because you've experienced darkness. Things are defined by what they're not.
The author uses this great analogy of a rope. Think about it. You can't have one end of a rope without the other, right? It's impossible. Well, it's the same for emotions. Happiness can't really exist without sadness. In a way, the potential depth of our sorrow is what defines the potential height of our joy. One gives meaning and a measuring stick to the other.
Okay, now here's where this idea of opposites and roles gets incredibly powerful and, to be honest, pretty unsettling. Let's move away from theory and look at a real-world example of how our individual all, our core self, can get completely swallowed up by the universal all of a social role. And this brings up a huge question. How easily do we just become the roles we're told to play? Back in the 1970s, a psychologist named Philip Zimbardo decided to find out, and the result was one of the most famous and controversial studies ever. The setup seemed simple enough. Zimbardo's team built a fake prison in the basement of Stanford University. They got a group of healthy, psychologically stable male students and randomly assigned them to be either prisoners or guards. It was all supposed to last for 2 weeks. But what happened next was shocking.
Within just a few days, the line between acting and reality completely blurred. The students playing the wardens became genuinely cruel and authoritarian, and the prisoners, they became passive, helpless, and just emotionally broken down. They weren't acting anymore. Had become their roles. The whole situation got so out of hand, so dangerous, that they had to shut the whole thing down after only 6 days.
This experiment is just a chilling, perfect example of what the author of our source material calls identifusion. It's that psychological process where our own identity, our I, melds so completely with a role given to us by the group, the we, that we totally forget where we end and the role begins. So, why does any of this matter? Well, understanding this framework isn't just some mental exercise. It's a real tool for self-awareness. It's a way to see the invisible forces that are shaping our behavior and ultimately to live a more conscious and intentional life.
And this is where it gets super practical. By looking at the world this way, you can start to notice the unconscious scripts you're following every day. You can start to ask yourself, hey, are my routines serving me or am I just a slave to them? It's all about finding that conscious balance between who you are as a person and the demands of all the groups and systems you're a part of. So I want to leave you with this to think about. Take a real, honest look at your own life. Whether it's your job, your role in your family, your friend group, what's the universal all that's shaping you right now? And how is it interacting with that unique, individual all that is you? The answer might just change how you see, well, everything.